ready.
Let's do this.
Time to farm some dubs. Crap, I got a squad on my right.
I'm running in for backup.
Yo, Ron, he's right there in front of you.
Sorry guys, it happened again.
Damn. This is the 10th one today.
Alright, I'm back.
Someone cover me.
Yeah, I see you. You got him, you got him, you got him! Yes! Yo, that's sweet.
Yeah, it is. We about to win this.
Guys, I can get used to this.
HyperX alloy. Built strong because it has to be.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show as we are jumping on in for round 8 of 12 here for ORL Season 14. And we're at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. I'm Milky Cyril, joined by the fantastic Jacob Hancocks. Now, usually we would talk a little bit about the standings, etc., but drivers have just got into qualifying. So, Jacob, we're going to have to kind of speed run talking about the drivers' standings before we jump right on into qualifying. So, looking at the standings, what's hot right now?
Well, Jarno Opmeer is pretty hot right now. He's top of the standings for the first time this season, up there on 86 points. 10 points ahead of his teammate Patrick Krutage, who is sitting in second. Alvaro Carreton, who was leading the championship for quite a while, is now just down in third with only 71 points, 15 points off at the top. Daniele Haddad, after a very poor result last time out at the Bahrain short circuit, is down there in fourth, but still in with a shout. And then you've got a bit of a gap down to the likes of Tormela and Di Capua, who is a driver who we might be expecting some improved results from in the next few races.
And with that said, let's jump right on in then to qualifying, as the drivers are starting to make their way out on to circuit. There we go. So, you mentioned briefly that Alessio Di Capua is a driver to possibly keep an eye out for. Currently 6 points off at Joni Tormela, who is not racing again today. So, chances right now for Di Capua to jump up the standings. But, of course, the reason why we want to bring up Di Capua is because first 3 races, P7, P4, P8, he was looking good, he was in the mix for those points, and then all of a sudden he had a 3-race drought outside the top 10, and then he smashed back in form in Bahrain, picking up that second place result, and was with Jarno Opmeer the entirety of the race.
Yeah, and the thing about Alessio Di Capua is on pace he's almost always a top 5 driver on the grid, or thereabouts. But most of the time he can string that together in qualifying. Most of the time he'll get that down. Occasionally he'll have too many invalidations and he'll have issues there. But when it comes to the races themselves, he either gets very unlucky or makes his own bad luck and ends up dropping down further than he would like to be. He tends to have messy first laps and tends to struggle to keep his nose clean throughout the whole race. So that has definitely been hindering him, but it was a lot better last time out of Bahrain short, as you mentioned, managing to come home to that second place, only bested by Jarno Opmeer on the day. And he's very much hoping that he can have a similarly clean race here in Belgium.
Yeah, and you brought up the whole point of drivers kind of finishing a little bit below par, a little bit below where they'd expect to be. One of those drivers is Alvaro Carreton. The other driver is the man we're currently riding on board with, Dani Haddad, who was at the top end of the championship after Japan, but then P11 in China, P8 in Brazil, outside the top 10 in Bahrain, where it was a race where whoever kind of got the strategy wrong really paid the price, and Dani Haddad was one of those drivers, and now he finds himself at 23 points off the championship lead. He really needs to pick up his form.
And Haddad also got his braking very wrong in Bahrain as well. I seem to remember him careening into the side of Fabrizio Donoso, I think it was, knocking out his front wing, and that rather ruined his race from that point. And in fact, he's ruined this qualifying lap as well. He has actually invalidated this current attempt, the Racing Point driver, so he's not going to be able to complete this one. So it looks like Shanaka Clay, a one-time race winner thus far this season, who's back here today in Belgium, he's going to be the first driver to post a representative lap time on the board at these early stages of qualifying. He's coming up towards the line now, and let's see what he's able to do. It is a 1:40.594 to start off proceedings.
Yeah, Josh Ido, who has started a lap. I'm just seeing who else is close. Jarno Opmeer is making his way through Brussels and now has a slight moment with the rear. And Alvaro Carreton, he said he needed to pick up the form, a 40.589, just 5 thousandths quicker than Shanaka Clay, but I think by the time we get to the end of the session, we're going to be expecting to see some 40.1s maybe sneaking into the timing sheets.
We'll have to wait and see whether certain drivers are going to be able to manage that or not. Benzo Bocconi just went up into 4th in the Renault. Gettones didn't invalidate, but isn't happy with the way that lap was playing out, so has headed back into the pits. Next to come across the line should be the McLaren of Jorge Alberola, who's coming up towards the line now. The Spaniard only good enough for 6th there with a 1:41.007.
Yeah, and Jarno Otmar has made his way through Blanchimont and into the final chicane. Nice and late on the brakes, just to kiss the curb through the right and just tapping it through the left on the power as early as he can. What will it be for the current championship leader? 40.2, and he smashes Alvaro Caraton's time by 0.3 of a second.
Definitely makes that 40.1 you were mentioning more likely. Josh Adowu goes up in a second there with a 1:40.422. Josh Adowu, actually watched some of his perspective of his race last time out, because if you remember in Bahrain, he was up there with the front runners for quite a while, maybe struggling occasionally to keep in touch with the very front ones, but generally in the leading pack. And then towards the end, he tried to make those medium tyres last for so much longer than so many other drivers. Didn't go for a 2-stop, even though he pitted on the same lap as other drivers who did then stop again. And right at the very end, his tyres just really went away from him. And he just basically chalked that down to lack of experience with the Bahrain short circuit. Didn't really know what the optimal strategy was around there. Tried to wing it on strategy, got it wrong, and that really cost him as he fell outside of the point-scoring finishes in a race where he really could have been looking at the podium if he got his strategy right. So I'll be hoping that he can improve things here at Spa, and definitely on the right track with that one in the orange McLaren, up into 2nd already at this early stage of qualifying.
Yeah, I'm taking a look right now at Tom97, a driver who you pretty much introduced to me, Jacob, one of my first ever times commentating with you. I believe Tom97 was racing with the likes of Michael Tinitz and a few other big names, and he's improved since then as Tom97 across the line, a 41.0, which is currently P11, so he'll definitely be wanting to improve on that over the remaining 11 or so minutes in the session.
Yeah, Tom's a driver who puts in quite a lot of hard work, and he's seeing quite some good results from that hard work. I think he actually was a stand-in driver in the PC F1 Esports Challenger Series recently, and he actually scored points in his first race in that, which is a very, very tough field indeed. You got the likes of Alessio Di Capua in there, Josh Adowu also participating there, Dario Iamulo does over on the PS4 version, I believe, but a lot of the drivers in our field, Benzo Bocconi as well, a lot of these guys are F1 Esports Challenger Series drivers, and Tom97 was joining those ranks, and on his first occasion managed points there. So definitely a driver on the up is Tom. Similar in that sort of regard to Andy, who is a driver who I've seen not low levels, but relatively speaking, lower levels of competition in the last couple of years, but just gradually been getting better and better. He's up there in 7th at the moment.
Another driver who will be having to rise up the ranks, not in terms of their pace, just in terms of their current standing, is Danny Haddad, who's currently sitting down in P20, having invalidated his first lap. He was the first driver out on track, and I think he just ran a bit wide through no name, so I hope he hasn't validated his time. He's really throwing the car into Pouhon. That was a racing point right on the limit.
Yeah, he's on the limit, but he's only on the limit to work out what sort of times he can do, because he has invalidated through no name, as you mentioned. So Daniele Haddad invalidating for the 2nd time in a row is struggling there in the racing to get a lap together in qualifying. And of course at Spa, with such a long lap time, you get relatively fewer chances to put in a good lap in qualifying. So every lap that you invalidate means much more here than it does at, for instance, the Bahrain short circuit, where you probably get twice as many laps in qualifying.
And we did see at Bahrain short, I think, at least 4 hot laps coming through from those drivers. Fabrizio Donoso then makes his way through the chicane, and he has not invalidated, or at the very least he is still pushing on his lap through campus and into Stavolo. Nice and neat through curve Paul Frere and up towards the Blanchimont. What will it be for the Renault driver? Fabrizio Donoso has left a lot to be desired in. Oh, what is going on up ahead? Oh, dearie me.
Oh.
That is a huge accident involving Simon Weigang, Alessio Di Capua with Fabrizio Donoso. And is that one of the Alpha Tauris ahead of Simon Weigang?
There is an AlphaTauri. That's Pablo Joglar just up ahead. There's a couple of Renaults involved there. Of course, that is Fabrizio Donoso himself. That was a very, very weird moment indeed. Weigang I don't know if Hoglar was going more slowly into the final chicane. I don't know if people didn't realize that Donoso was on a flying lap, because he was out of kilter with the rest of the field. He was one of only about 2 or 3 drivers. It was only him and Gettoned who were on a flying lap at that point. And maybe the other ones backing up in that final chicane, the likes of Weigang, Alessio Di Capua, didn't realize that there were people actually on flying laps behind, probably thought they were also on out laps like themselves, and thus didn't get out of the way for Fabrizio, who, by the way, was about 2 tenths up on Jarno Opmeer's time in the first couple of sectors.
Wow. And I think no matter how you look at that, no matter how Simon Weigang tries to play it, the fact remains that he should not have been in the way of Fabrizio Donoso, even if there was a slower car ahead. He was not on a hot lap, and I'm sure Fabrizio will be putting that into the steward's room for an inquiry. And I'd be very much surprised if Simon Weigang, wow, that was oversteer and a half through Pouhon. He somehow holds on to the car, but I highly doubt whether this will be a lap he'll want to write home about.
Indeed, yeah. It's very likely that that's going to be a bit of a problematic lap there. At the moment, as things stand, it's currently Jarno Opmeer from Joshua Doe and Alvaro Caraton make that Shanaka Clay in third, as he just popped himself ahead of Alvaro, who then goes one better, going up into second, knocking Joshua Doe down into third. Nice lap there from the Spaniard. Jarno Opmeer is out there on a flying lap as well. He's just started this one. He's just gone up the hill, and he'll be heading down the Kennel Straight towards Lecombe at the end of this straight, when we'll get the first split time and see how far up he is on his previous lap time. In fact, he's actually slightly down, just 17 thousandths of a second, so plenty of time left to improve.
Yeah, just after Sector 1 at 17,000 separating. Down Rivage and into Brussels. It down into third gear. Look at the short shift up into fifth. Usually we see drivers short shifting up to fourth, but Jarno Opmeer going all the way up to gear number 5 to minimize the wheel spin. Now into Pouhon. How much speed does Jarno carry? A lot of speed. The back end holds itself, plants itself down all the way through into the Faniers chicane. Nice diagonal braking, using up all of the curb as you can. Almost running wide does Jarno Opmeer, but all too well that ends well into campus, and now Stavolo, and Jarno Opmeer is nearly 2 tenths up on his best time, and if he had a slipstream from someone, I reckon he'd even get into the 39s.
Yeah, that's a big statement, but Jarno Opmeer is a big statement kind of driver. Yeah, definitely on a very, very good lap right now. Joshua Doe was also on a push lap and matching his best time, but that's still a couple of tenths down on what Jarno Opmeer has been able to do. Let's see what the Dutchman's going to be then as he comes up towards the line. He does go faster. It's a 1:40.091. Not quite into those 39s, but didn't have that slipstream that you mentioned. A very good lap time indeed from Opmeer. That is 2 and a bit tenths clear of Alvaro Caraton, who has already put in his second flying lap as well. Joshua Doe is the only one who can realistically challenge in this second rotation of laps here, and he is into the final sector of his lap.
He didn't really use all of the track, he did Joshua Doe on the exit of Stavolo. I wonder if that will compromise him into the final corner. Look how much curb the Welshman uses all the way through onto the power as early as he dare out of the chicane. A 40.2, Joshua Doe jumps up to P2, and that lap, I think that lap would have been just enough to beat Jarno Opmeer's previous time. Either that or it would have been extremely close.
Jarno is absolutely electric through the final sector in particular. There must be something about that last chicane, the bus stop chicane, that Jarno Opmeer can just do better than everyone else. He's a 10th clear of the next fastest driver in that final sector alone. Joshua Doe was almost matching Jarno's lap time until that final sector, and then he dropped off. And Jarno is just really nailing that part of the track. So credit where credit's due for him. He's definitely putting his homework for that particular aspect of the lap, and it's paying him dividends right now. Fabrizio Donoso is out there, so is Alessio Di Capua, although he has invalidated once again. Daniele Haddad has managed to get a lap time on the board, and he's up into third. Gettoned out there and pushing. He's still yet to register a lap time as well.
Now here's something big for Fabrizio Donoso. Either he completes this lap or he comes into the pits. If he completes this lap, this would be his only and his final lap of the session. I don't think he'll have enough time otherwise. Across the line, Fabrizio Donoso, a 40.168. That will provisionally put him on the front row of the grid. A fantastic lap from the Frenchman.
Yeah, and I tell you what, he's over a tenth down on Jarno Opmeer in that final sector. It was an electric middle sector for Fabrizio Donoso, so maybe we're seeing a bit of a difference in strategy or setup, rather, between Opmeer and Donoso, or just being better at driving different parts of the circuit. But either way, the Chilean driver up into second for the time being will be more than happy with that one. Is there anyone out there pushing at the moment? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think so. Most drivers either in the pits or on in-laps right now. So we've got a bit of a lull before everyone goes out for their final attempts.
I'm just going to apologize because I called Fabrizio Donoso the Frenchman. I had Nicolas Longuet stuck in my head, or Nicolas Longuet. So apologies for that. But yeah, the Chilean putting in an absolutely fantastic lap. But Joshi Doru, Daniela Haddad, Alvaro Caraton, all hot on his heels. We'll see what they can pull through. And I've still got hopes for Alessio Di Capua. We know that he can, at the very least in qualifying, pull out some absolutely spectacular laps.
Indeed, yeah. So, a couple of drivers maybe leaving the pit lane. Is that a Mercedes on its way out there? Is it Jarno Opmeer? I can't quite tell. There's a couple of drivers now getting out there, and they'll be on track very shortly. And let's take stock quickly of the standings. Is there anyone we're surprised about? The top 10 looking pretty typical. It might, as much as we would expect it. Simon Weigang down in 15th is surprising, though he's had a bit of an incident-ridden qualifying thus far. Alessio Di Capua is down there, but of course, he hasn't set a lap time either. But other than that, I would say this is more or less in accordance with what I would expect.
I think I'd have to agree. I think, you know, your standouts are the fact that Simon Weigang P15, Alessio Di Capua down in P19. I know he's not had great recent qualifying results with the exception of Bahrain short, but usually we see him higher up at the order. I think I'd say Patrick Krutich is a bit higher than I would expect. I usually tend to see him, and yes, I know we're talking about the former championship leader, but usually I think we see him much closer to that P10 spot, maybe a little bit lower, and it's usually in the race where you really see the Mercedes driver shine.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, actually. He tends to qualify 11th, 12th, thereabouts, and then often makes the contra-strategy work in the races. One driver I didn't mention who I am surprised about is Felipe, down in 18th and last of those who have set a lap time thus far. Given the form he's been in the last couple of races, it's surprising to see him down there, but maybe that's not something we would have said if it wasn't for those last two races.
I think you're definitely right on that. That P4 in Brazil was spectacular. The question is, and this is something that Felipe is going to have to prove to himself as well, was Brazil and I guess Bahrain as well, was it a one-hit wonder, or does Felipe have more in his tank? I know a lot of the esports drivers have been, you know, really giving Felipe a thumbs up for his improvement, saying that he's one of the most improved drivers in the F1 community and really see him as a threat for F1 esports in coming years. And Felipe will start his final hot lap here at Spa. What can he pull out? He'll be wanting to get well into the 140s, and currently the Brazilian's best time is a 1:41.5.
Yeah, he has the dubious honor of being the first driver on a flying lap of this final set of drivers, unless that's Spencer Bacon over here, but I don't think it is. No, that's behind. So, yeah, Felipe will have that ever so slight issue of not having so much track improvement as some of the other drivers. Maybe a bit of a moment there for Felipe as well. Through Les Cons, struggling to hold on to that Haas just a little bit, so not looking too great right now.
Half a second up. That was the delta for Felipe in Sector
dear.
1. Did he invalidate?
No, sorry. There's all kinds of mess in the final sector. Daniele Haddad, Tom 97 both have not made it. Everyone was backing up too much in the final couple of corners there, and some drivers have not made the checkered flag, so that's bad news for them. Fabrizio Donoso won't make it either. He's had to retire his car out on track. Hopefully that's not going to get in anyone's way. And the gaps between these drivers are not as large as they would like them to be.
I think Fabrizio Donoso is just staying out to give someone a slipstream, but Felipe is 8/10 up at the end of Sector 2. This is going to be peeping around Domenico Lovecchio and Dario Iamullo for that P10 spot. What can the Brazilian do? We'll switch over to Jarno Opmeer, Joshi Doru in a moment, but Felipe's making his way into the final sector, dropping it down into second gear. And now the short shifting up on exit, up to third, and just to drag the line. What can Felipe pull out? It's a 40.5, and that is P7.
Decent lap time there from Felipe, much more like it. And Jarno Opmeer is on a very good lap right now. His middle sector is the fastest he's recorded at any point during this session. Alvaro Caraton a couple of tenths down. Same for Joshi Doru. Neither of those drivers matching Jarno in the middle sector.
It's a 39, isn't it? No, he misses out. 2,000ths of a second. Jarno Opmeer so close, but yet so far. Joshi Dowu is not improving. What about Alvaro Carreton? He has pulled out, and I'm just looking for Alessio Di Capua because he could really spoil the party. And of course, we don't really know, Jacob, how much Alessio is improving by because he has not set a previous time. So it's all or nothing. Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's gone. He's invalidated. He's going to be starting from 20th and last because Getund managed to string a lap together. So Alessio Di Capua, I did mention it, he's inconsistent and sometimes he does fail to string a lap together in qualifying. It's happened here and it is such a disaster. That's going to be absolute heartache for the Italian. After it seemed like he was on an upwards trajectory, this is a huge punch to the gut.
Do we have any idea what Alessio Di Capua's time would have been if it wasn't invalidated?
I do not know, actually, I'm afraid. I can see, he's got a 40.287 registered in there. So that is good enough for, that's top 3, I think. Or, no, that would have put him into 5th there, just behind Daniele Haddad.
Well, he had the pace, but sadly for Alessio Di Capua, he will be starting from the back of the grid. Jarno Opmeer then lines up in pole alongside Fabrizio Donoso, Joshi Dowu, Daniele Haddad on the second row of the grid. And a chance for Danny Haddad and Alvaro Carreton to get back up to the form that we know they are capable of. We're going to be heading into a short break. And when we're back, we'll be bringing you the race live and uninterrupted to the very end. Stay tuned.
Hey man, I just can't find a comfortable headset. I mean, I've tried everything. Literally everything.
Jeez, my brother. I got you.
The HyperX Cloud 2 Wireless. Legendary comfort goes wireless.
That is comfortable.
What sound experience would you like today?
I'll have the fantasy pack.
Good choice.
And could you make it a Cloud 2 Wireless?
On his way, sir.
Sounds amazing!
The HyperX Cloud 2 Wireless. Legendary comfort goes wireless.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we jump on in for the race. Round 8 of 12 here at Belgium. Jarno Opmeer leads the championship for the first time since season 13. And he leads by 10 points over Patrick Krutage. The question is, can he continue to extend his championship advantage? All of that will be found out over the next 45 minutes.
You know what? If I'm a betting man, I'm saying that yes, he can, because Patrick Krutage has qualified down in 13th. After he was looking good for the majority of qualifying, at the very end, I don't think he improved on his final effort, and many other drivers did. So the Polish driver finds himself down in 13th on the grid, whereas Jarno Opmeer is on pole. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Jarno's lead over Patrick, at least, will have increased by the end of this race.
To be honest, I think you'd go out on a limb and say that Jarno Opmeer's lead to anyone on the circuit is likely to increase. Fabrizio Donoso, though, is showing some of the most pace I have seen from him in a league session in a long time. And I've got high hopes that the Chilean, not the Frenchman, can pull something fantastic out of the bag. But he's got Jarno Opmeer ahead of him, and that is going to be a hard task indeed.
Yeah, let's not forget, Fabrizio Donoso, back on, what was it, F1 2017 it must have been? The very first F1 Esports Pro Series. He was the one challenging Brendan Lee for the title. It brought it pretty close towards the end of that season as well. Since then, he hasn't reached those heights again, but he has that within himself. He has been at the very top, literally the second best driver on the game at one point in time. And right now, second best driver in this lobby, and the driver ahead, appropriately enough, is definitely the best driver in the game right now. So it all kind of falls into place there. Fabrizio will want to prove that he is a match for Jarno Opmeer, of course, and the best way to do that would be to take him into La Source.
Or maybe even wait until after La Source, get him on the Kemmel straight. Of course, some of the other drivers that we do need to keep an eye out on is Alessio Di Capua starting down in P20. Patrick Krutage always shows a tremendous race pace, and it wouldn't be surprising to see Patrick Krutage well into the top 10 by the end of the race. Just taking a look at tyres, everyone outside of the top 10, Jacob, starting on those medium compound of tyres.
Yeah, so they're all going to go for a contra strategy, but no one wanting to go onto those hards. Shout out as well to Simon Weigang, who was having a tricky qualifying session, but pulled it together right at the end to be up in 7th, just behind his teammate for the day, Shanaka Clay.
Shanaka Clay winning that one race that he took part in this season back in the mixed conditions at China. Will he be able to make it 2 from 2? We're going to have to wait and see, as it's 5 red lights here at Spa-Francorchamps as we get ready to go for round 8 of the season, and we are underway. It's a fantastic start from Jan Watmir, but it's an even better start from Fabrizio Donoso. He'll look for the slingshot on the exit of the corner as an Alfa Romeo makes contact to Williams going across the circuit, and that's Alvaro Caratana dropping far down the order, down to P11, but it is Jarno Watmir who leads from Fabrizio Donoso, who will tuck right on in behind the Mercedes as we make our way down the Kemmel Straight. Jarno Watmir will go defensive, and Fabrizio Donoso makes his way onto the outside as Josh Udo watches all of this unfold. Jarno late on the brakes, and he holds on to the lead of the race. Fabrizio Donoso through Malmedy. Can he find the exit? No, he can't, and Jarno Watmir holds on to the lead on the opening lap of the race.
Alvaro Caraton's had a poor start. He's down 2 places into 7th, whereas Dario Yemulo has gone up 3 places from 9th to 6th. A great start from him. Dominique Levecce has also fallen outside of the top 10. And Shanaka Clay, who I think was involved in a sort of miniature incident with Alvaro Caraton, has also lost out on this opening lap. So those are the big losers here. And Tom 97 as well, falling from 16th to 19th. Meanwhile, Simon Weigang even improving further on his qualifying, up into 5th now, looking at the rear wing of Daniele Haddad. The top 4, though, remaining as they were.
Alessio Di Capua has climbed up to P17. It's been a bad start for Tom 97. He's dropped down to P19. And I think that is Andy, who is right on the tail. No, it's Alessio Di Capua, who is right alongside Tristan Matthias. And he's going to slide ahead through Paul Frere. And Jorge Alberola looking to join into the fun as well. This is the battle for P16 as Alessio Di Capua charges up the field.
Oh no, there's contact there. That is Jorge Alberola completely missing the braking zone there, going straight into the rear end of Matthias, who gets spun round. Absolutely nothing Matthias did wrong in that scenario. Jorge Alberola's got something to answer for in that one. He's heading straight into the pits now for a change of front wing. Out at the front, it's still Jarno Watmir leading from let me try that one again. From Fabrizio Donoso.
Yeah, Fabrizio down in P2, Danny Haddad P4, and there is Josh Udo in the middle. Our time is going a bit weird as people are starting to desync. Alessio Di Capua now on the back of Pablo Hoglar. I'm just keeping a look on Alessio because I know he's going to be climbing up the order, and I know we're going to be seeing some sparks of flying from the Italian.
For sure, yeah. To make it even better for him, Pablo Hoglar falling a little bit further away from Felipe than he would be comfortable with. So when DRS comes up online, it's possible that Hoglar will have lost that 1 second margin to Felipe up ahead. And if so, Alessio will pass him with even more ease. Although that's a big if right now, as Hoglar seems to be doing an alright job of reeling Felipe back in.
Yeah, Alessio Di Capua now just a couple of tenths behind Pablo Hoglar as Felipe is getting caught behind Domenico Levecce. And have you spotted
Andy
something?
and Patrick here. Sorry, Andy and Patrick Krutic going side by side right now through this right-hander here, flat out, and Patrick actually picks up a warning for running wide. Andy had to counter for oversteer there and actually pushed Patrick wide, so that's probably going to be appealed afterwards, that penalty. Meanwhile, Domenico Levecce is now getting interested, trying to make Patrick's day even worse, forces him out wide there through Blanchimont. And now might even send it up the inside of the Ferrari into the bus stop. But Patrick Krutic, even later on the brakes, tries to go around the outside. And now Felipe is interested as well. It's going to be 3 wide down the main straight before we get to last source. Felipe backs out of that one. It looks like Domenico Levecce should be able to maintain the position for the time being. Patrick still trying to hang it around the outside, but cannot quite stay alongside. But he will be able to slipstream Domenico all the way down the hill and back up it again.
And Alessio Di Capua has a grandstand view of this box seat as Patrick Krutic closer to Domenico Levecce. The bravery that Patrick Krutic pulled so late on the brakes around the outside into the final chicane almost worked if it wasn't for the Ferrari of Andy, as Fabrizio Donoso has regained the lead of the race.
Yeah, he just got him there into Lecomte at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Fabrizio Donoso making the move on Jarno Opmeer. Now, the big question is whether he'll be able to build any sort of gap whatsoever, because we've seen this happen before. We've seen Jarno falling behind and be perfectly comfortable going around in second, and he'll know when to pull the trigger and get back past Fabrizio Donoso. It's a tactical game right now. It's so easy to overtake at the end of the Kemmel Straight here that you could see drivers changing position every lap if they wanted to. It's about farming ERS, it's about knowing when to use it, trying to pressure the other drivers into using their own ERS to try and stay ahead. And it's just a huge game of chess right now between these guys in front.
One of the first ever F1 esports races I witnessed, Jacob, was at 2020 F1 esports, or pardon me, 2019 F1 esports here at Spa, where it was a battle to the end between Danny Berejne and Freddie Rasmussen. And it was Danny Berejne who let Freddie Rasmussen through into the source just to be able to get the slipstream and was able to find the move on the Kemmel Straight and claim the win. We even saw Danny Berejne having a fantastic battle last season in F1 2020 with Marcel Kiefer and Freddie Rasmussen, only able to take P2 that time round. But Spa always brings through some fantastic races just from that Kemmel Straight alone, and the last lap battle is sure to be magnificent.
Domenico Lovecchio is going to be pretty disappointed with the way this race has started. Qualified in 10th, down to 11th, having fallen behind Andy. And Andy, on those medium tyres, is actually building a pretty comfortable gap to the Italian behind as well. Not sure if Domenico has any front wing damage. It doesn't look like it, visually at least. So he's just struggling a little bit here, more than usual in the racing point.
I tell you what, Fabrizio Donoso had pulled that gap to Jarno Opmeer to nearly 0.8 of a second. In fact, I think he went slightly higher for a bit. So if Fabrizio Donoso can nail this final half of the lap, he might, and I say might, a big might, he might be able to pull over a second ahead of the current championship leader.
I mean, he showed incredible pace in qualifying as well, Fabrizio Donoso, and he had fewer laps with which to demonstrate that pace compared to Jarno Opmeer, who had a clean run of things. Fabrizio had an invalidation at one point. He careened into the back of, it was Simon Weigang, wasn't it, in qualifying as well, and Alessio Di Caprio involved in that incident too. And yet still, he was right up there, and that lap where he actually crashed, Fabrizio was up on Jarno Opmeer's, what was his provisional pole time at that moment in time. So Fabrizio definitely has the pace to go at least even with Jarno Opmeer over one lap. It's just a question of whether it's over the whole course of a race and whether he can match him on strategy as well, which is something that, you know, Jarno Opmeer is incredibly fast, but if he's better at anything else, it's strategy. He might even be better at strategy than he is at just raw speed, and that's saying a lot because he's amazing at both.
Jarno Opmeer was the man in F1 esports who, well, I mean, for me anyway, really first started pulling out the alternate strategies. You will remember that win he had back at Hockenheim in F1 of 2019, his first esports win, and that's when Jarno Opmeer really started coming to light, especially as the alternate strategy mastermind. Of course, here in ORL, he doesn't really have the opportunity to pull out the alternate strategy, but his strategies have still always been so good, and is the reason why he's been able to take the Season 12 and the Season 13 titles, and now possibly the Season 14 to make it 3 in a row. And I believe he'll be the first person to do that since Kalsper back in Season 10.
Wow, yeah, definitely in a minute since that has last happened then. Alvaro Caraton, by the way, he's becoming the weak link in this chain, or the train, I should say, out at the front. He's just on that 1 second margin to Dario Iamullo up ahead, just kind of going in and out of that 1 second. He needs to try and get them back within it by the time of the next DRS detection point, but he is really struggling right now. Usually you'd see these drivers comfortably being about 6, 7, maybe even 5 tenths behind one another. But Alvaro is really struggling to keep with those top 6 runners right now, which is not something that he needs when Jarno Opmeer is threatening to run away with the championship.
I just took a quick look at ERS, and Fabrizio down to, what is that, 40%, Jarno Opmeer on about 70. Alvaro Caraton has just squeezed within a second of Dario Iamullo, so he should be able to join into the train, and by joining into the train, he has also connected the top 9 to, well, pretty much the bottom 10, as Shanaka Clay diving on into the pits on lap 4. Very early pit stop for Shanaka Clay and Domenico Lovecchio.
Yeah, early pit stops, a relatively common sight here in Spa. The soft tyres don't last all that well, and the medium tyres do a decent job. Shinaka Clay and Domenico both going on to those yellow old medium tyres, of course, coming out down in 17th and 18th. They'll be hoping that by the time they catch up to the rear end of Matthias up ahead, that he'll be wanting to go into the pits to get rid of his mediums, and therefore they won't have too much traffic throughout the race, but we'll have to wait and see. Depends on just how quickly they catch up with them. Alvaro did manage to get DRS on Dario Yamulo, but since then has fallen back outside of the DRS range once again. So the Spaniard really starting to struggle.
He has Ben Sabo Conyi for company as well, and Ben Sabo is the last of the runners on the soft tyres. So Andinator and Patrick Kutic are currently leading the way for everyone starting on the medium tyres. And oh no, Alvaro Carreton picks up a 3-second time penalty as well. His race is just going from bad to worse.
I mean, that's the thing as well. He's falling outside of DRS to Dario Yamulo, yet he's using more ERS than anyone up ahead. He's picking up these time penalties, which shows he's pushing one of the hardest out there. He's really pushing as hard as he can. You don't pick up time penalties unless you're basically going flat out, especially when you're at the level of these drivers. So Alvaro Carreton is trying as hard as he can. He's using a lot of ERS, and still he cannot stay with Dario Yamulo. He is really, really struggling here in Belgium.
Look how close Ben Sabo Conyi is to him as well. We saw Simon Weigang picking up a time penalty, and oh, that's a lot of people diving on into the pits. Ben Sabo Conyi, it seems, loses his rear end and decides, oh, well, that's pointed me towards the pit lane. Why not head on it?
I think there might have been a pit opposite Alvaro sort of move there. Maybe if Alvaro came in, then Bence might have stayed out for another lap, but also has to worry. He was the first one in line for the undercut from Shinaka Clay and Domenico Lovecce as well, so he has to try and respond to the threatened undercut from those drivers. We'll see where these guys come back out of the pits. Dario Yamulo wasn't able to jump Simon Weigang in those pit stops, stays behind the German, and yep, Shinaka Clay is ahead of Bence Sabo Conyi. Domenico Lovecce almost managed to get the Renault driver, but not quite.
And Dario Yamulo on a fresh medium, just like Simon Weigang, is going to have a DRS from Simon, and he could use this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to find a way past Simon Weigang around the outside on the Kemmel Straight, and he pulls off the move with ease. Dario Yamulo up to P14.
Yeah, well done to Dario Yamulo getting past Simon Weigang. He started the race behind both of the Alfa Romeos. Now he's ahead of both of them. Shinaka Clay down in 16th and Weigang 15th, with Yamulo up into 14th. 4.5 seconds of clean air now to Matthias up ahead. It's less than it was a couple of laps ago from this freshly medium shod pack. So they're not going to have it all their own way. Good news for them, though, is that Matthias is on an island, so he won't have the benefit of having DRS to a car ahead, so he should be relatively easy to pass. And then there's another 5.5 seconds of clean air out ahead of him. So it's not all tears once they get to the rear end of that red.
Fabrizio Donoso will dive on into the pits. Jana Watmere will stay out for one lap longer, so will Josh Idowu. Danny Haddad dives on in. Alvaro Carreton will dive in as well. Patrick Kutic and Andinator both staying out because they are, of course, on the medium compound tyres.
Yeah, indeed. So Andy and Patrick finding themselves up in 3rd and 4th. Patrick on that contra strategy, doing a decent job with it once again, though he has picked up a time penalty and isn't within DRS range of Andy. So doesn't quite have the pace of the German in 3rd, which is going to be a little bit disappointing for Patrick at this stage of the race. Here comes Daniele Haddad out of the pits, and he still is ahead of Dario Yamulo, but Dario's already in overtake mode. He's envisaging this overtake at the end of the Kemmel Straight, and probably even only halfway down the Kemmel Straight, to be honest. DRS is going to open. He's got out to overtake now, but he has enough overspeed on his compatriot in the racing point, and he is just going to be able to breeze past by the end of this straight. Daniele Haddad not going to fight that one back, so Dario Yamulo out of this pit stop strategy is making waves.
Yep, he's effectively in P4 of the race behind Fabrizio Donoso, Jana Watmere and Josh Idowu. We also saw Felipe getting past Patrick Kutic, I believe, for what is P2 in the medium compound of tyre battle. Alessio Di Capo a few attempts behind Patrick Kutic, so he's right up there as well, making amends after what was a disastrous qualifying affair for him. Unable to set a single clean lap, every lap being invalidated, so starting from the very back of the grid.
Bad news for Fabrizio Donoso. He's come out of the pits and he's stuck behind Matthias at the wrong part of the track. There's no way to overtake until just now. He's been following him all the way through Sector 2. Will finally get past the Red Bull driver, but that's going to have nullified a lot of the attempted undercut he would have had on Jarno Opmeer there. So that's a bit of a relief for Jarno. He's going to come into the pits now to respond to the undercut from Fabrizio Donoso. And we'll see just how much of a gap Fabrizio will have been able to pull on Jarno. He'll be hoping to have got him outside of a second, but that issue with Matthias there being stuck behind the Polish driver will not have helped.
Yeah, actually Patrick Krutic has just been passed by Alessio Di Capua down into turn 1, but this does mean that Patrick Krutic will have a DRS on Alessio Di Capua, and the Ferrari will have nothing to fight back with. Fabrizio Donoso has come out ahead of Jarno Opmeer by over 1.5 seconds, so he should be able to try to pull out of that DRS range. The question is, can Jarno pull back into the DRS range?
Daniele Haddad has just dispatched Dario Iemulo, so he's taken that position back after Iemulo took it from him a lap ago. Weigang is behind those guys as Shanaka Clay has fallen prey to both Josh Idowu and Bent Savokonyi in the last couple of laps. The Alfa Romeo driver struggling just a little bit now. And Josh Idowu going to be pretty happy to be up in 14th place. Alvaro Carreton look down in 18th right now, 7 seconds off the back of Domenico Lavecce. Did he have a front wing change in his pits?
He might have, Alvaro Carreton.
He did.
It would explain, wouldn't it, why Alvaro Carreton was really struggling to stay within 1 second of everyone else ahead. And again, Alvaro Carreton having some misfortune affect his race. Whether that was his own fault for the front wing loss or whether it was caused in an incident that wasn't his fault, we'll have to wait and see for the steward's report after the race. But for now, Jarno Opmeer 7 tenths behind Triton Matthias, who is just over a second behind Fabrizio Donoso. So Fabrizio has an opportunity right now to pull out of that 1 second range from Jarno Opmeer. The issue for Fabrizio Donoso, though, is that while Jarno Opmeer has about 70% ERS, Fabrizio Donoso only has about 15.
Yeah, but you can tell that Fabrizio is just pushing everything he has right now to try and build as much of a gap to Jarno Opmeer while Jarno is stuck behind Matthias. That is exactly what Fabrizio needs to do, but at some point he's going to have to start harvesting that ERS again, and you've got to feel like he hasn't pulled enough of a gap.
He's going for the outside of Patrick Krutic on the Kemmel Straight, and he has regained P3 in the race. He's 1.1 seconds behind Felipe. If he can push like crazy over the remainder of the lap, he should be able to get DRS from the Haas up ahead, which should help him to defend from Patrick Krutic.
Jarno Opmeer just got past Matthias, but critically so did Daniele Haddad at the same time. You could tell that Daniele was very interested in getting past Alessio. Has had some kind of issue. His car's ghosted. As he disconnected from the session, Alessio Di Capua losing positions, going slowly, ghosted car. I can only assume he's dropped from the session.
Oh, dearie me, Alessio Di Capua. He was in such a strong position as well and had so much of promise for the remainder of the race. But once again, there always seems to be something affecting Alessio Di Capua. And that P2 in Bahrain, sadly, there won't be anything similar to it tonight here at Belgium.
Indeed, yeah. Falling all the way to the back of that train and yet further. He's still not in control of that Ferrari. So Alessio's race is pretty much cooked at this stage. Jarno Opmeer, 1.2, 1.3 thereabouts seconds behind Fabrizio Donoso, but Fabrizio has 6% ERS. He tried his hardest to pull that gap to Jarno Opmeer. He didn't pull enough while Jarno spent a whole lap behind Matthias. So Fabrizio is going to be disappointed with the fact that he couldn't build that gap any more than he did, despite dumping all of his ERS at it. So, yeah, that's going to be Jarno Opmeer almost certainly closing back into the rear end of Fabrizio Donoso. Daniele Haddad's also struggling to stay with Jarno Opmeer, even though he was about 4 tenths of a second behind him at the start of this lap. So, Jarno having a good spurt of speed right now and doing everything he needs to do to reel Fabrizio back into his clutches.
Just over a second behind. He shouldn't get DRS at this time round. And Fabrizio Donoso came very close to picking up DRS from Alessio Di Capua as a ghosted car, but just like Jarno Opmeer, a tad too far back, as Dario Iemulo has been able to find a way past Matthias for P11 and finds himself behind Danny Haddad in what is the effective P4 of the race.
Yeah, Josh Doe was getting pretty close behind Simon Weigang at the end of the Kemmel Straight as well, but now they have Matthias up ahead. There's going to be a bit of a cork in this bottle right now. They don't want to be stuck behind him. Everyone that gets stuck behind Matthias in the middle sector is going to lose a pretty significant chunk of time as a result of it, because Matthias has much older medium tyres. So that's a good chance for Dario Yemulo to drop Simon Weigang, Josh Doe, Ben Sabakonyi, etc. Alessio Di Capua still just falling down through the order. Of course, that car is ghosted. Daniela Haddad is within DRS range of Jarno Otmir, and Jarno is just on the edge of DRS range to Fabrizio Donoso, who is still in the single digits in terms of his ERS percentage. So he just has nothing to battle with. If Jarno Otmir comes right up to the rear wing of him in the next couple of laps, Fabrizio will have no answer.
Jarno Otmir has gained pretty much a tenth on the back straight alone just by having some extra ERS. Now, we are seeing Patrick Krutich jumping on into the pits, so we'll see where he comes down. That'll give us an indicator for when the likes of Andy and Felipe pit as well. But for Jarno Otmir, I think he'll probably spend a few laps behind Fabrizio, save up some ERS before overtaking and then looking to make a run for it.
What Patrick wants is to come out of the pits ahead of Alvaro Carreton. And he's just about going to be able to do so, but he does light up the rear tyres on the exit of the pit lane. Alvaro could easily get past him with the slipstream down the hill here, and I think he's going to do so.
I think he's led him through to get DRS on the exit of raidillon. And Alvaro Carreton has a DRS, but Patrick Krutich has a slipstream. And clearly the slipstream is more effective. Patrick Krutich down the inside. He will be able to pick up the move and back up to P17.
Yeah, he needs to be ahead of Alvaro Carreton to get the best out of those fresh, soft tyres in these critical first few laps where they're going to be at maximum performance relative to the mediums of everyone else. He needs to put two absolutely just scorching hot laps in right now, catch up to the back of Domenico Lavecce, who's the next car up ahead if you ignore Alessio Di Capua's ghosted car. And then he can start thinking about conserving the tyres a bit more and then making progress up through what will be the inevitable point scorers.
Tell you what, Jacob, it's starting to look a little bit dark in the sky. And we've been seeing rain in the previous few races. Sure, we didn't see it in Bahrain, but we saw it in China. And maybe we're in for some rain here tonight. They definitely look dark. And it hasn't darkened significantly quickly, but maybe quickly enough to warrant some rain. Felipe Sousa dives on into the pits from P2. And he should come out right alongside Patrick Krutich, maybe a second behind due to Patrick Krutich having the undercut.
If the rain is coming very soon, then Felipe and Krutich have made a big mistake. I don't think the rain can be coming in the next few laps because there's no way that those guys would make the decision to come into the pits if they were being told the rain's within 5 minutes or something like this. Here comes Felipe out of the pits then, and he will fall behind Patrick Krutich there. So I think he was ahead of before heading into the pit lane. Those guys are going to be battling further up. There's yellow flags. Simon Weigand's been able to get past Dario Yemulo. And who's that? It's Falconardi, who's had an issue in the Williams. He's the wrong way out of Lecom there. And he's lost some elements of the front wing as well. So not a good race for the Williams at all.
No safety car, no VSC from it. So the race will not be affected by that incident. Felipe able to find a way through on Patrick Krutich. And sweeps past Alessio Di Capua's stricken Ferrari as well. Up to P14 then for the Brazilian, with Patrick Krutich closely in tow.
Fabrizio Donoso's got a bit more ERS in the tank now, but the trouble is, so does Jarno Otmir. He's up at about 80% right now, whereas Fabrizio's down at 30%. So while Jarno isn't getting that much closer to Fabrizio Donoso, he's maintaining the advantage he has in terms of his ERS. If the rain is coming, Jarno would do well to try and overtake Fabrizio before the rain does come down, because we all know how difficult it can be to follow cars and to overtake in the wet conditions. A couple of the medium runners coming into the pits, leaving only Andy out there on mediums from the start of this race. Tom and Pablo Hoglar are going to be dropping well down towards the back of the order after those pit stops. But Jarno Otmir should have the capability to overtake Fabrizio if he just dumps all of his overtake mode in the next couple of laps. And I think if the rain is coming soon, he needs to do so.
Yeah, the question is, if he dumps it all in one go, can Fabrizio Donoso just come right back on at him due to Jarno using up too much ERS. The other question is, you know, every single race that Jarno Opmeer is racing, and we bring up this point pretty much, Jarno just sits behind. He just waits for his moment as just to cut across it quickly. That point, Dominica Leveche able to get past Shanaka Clay for P9. But back to the point on Jarno, we see him sitting behind, we see him waiting, able to save up his ERS, but I think we might be forgetting, you know, the more obvious reason, which is Jarno Opmeer struggling to keep up with Fabrizio Donoso? Either way, we will find out over the course of the next 20 minutes. 7.5 laps remaining. I should say 8.5 laps remaining here at Spa-Francorchamps.
Dario Yamulo and Simon Weigang are actually getting a bit closer now to the front pack of Donoso, Opmeer, Haddad. Of course, that's ignoring Andy because Andy is yet to pit in this race and has now very effectively come into the pits at just the right moment there. Simon Weigang is getting closer to Daniele Haddad. So this three-way battle for the lead might soon become an N-way battle for the lead because there's so many drivers in that train. Even the top 9, I think that would be all in a train if Simon Weigang can get back up to the rear wing of Daniele Haddad up ahead. Felipe has just set the fastest lap of the race on those fresh, soft tyres, currently sitting down in 10th. So we'd expect those guys, Felipe and Patrick Krutage, to join in that train with Shanaka Clay up ahead as well. So we could well be in yet another big DRS train at the front, just like at the start of the race.
And the question is, though, once Felipe closes into the likes of Shanaka Clay and Dominica Leveche, will he have the life in his eyes? Will he have that extra bite in the rubber to be able to find a way through the Alfa Romeo and the Racing Point driver? Because Shanaka Clay has DRS from Dominica Leveche. If he didn't, I'd say yes, Felipe could find a way through. But with DRS available for Shanaka Clay, it might make things difficult. Now, Jacob, I have a question for you. Do you think those clouds, do you think they are rain clouds, or do you think that's just overcast clouds?
I'm sort of leaning more towards overcast clouds just because of the decisions these drivers are making. But I'm not 100% sure. If the rain is going to come down, it's going to be pretty late in the race, so it might well be one of those situations where drivers aren't sure if they want to pit or not.
I think I agree with your later sentiment. I think this is the case. We might be seeing drops of rain on the last 1 or 2 laps of the race, and we might be seeing some of the drivers towards the further end of the field risking it and just saying, to hell with it, I'll put on intermediate tyres for the last 2 laps. What's the worst that happened? I finished P20 instead of P15. So what? And that's what can tend to make races super exciting in changeable conditions.
Absolutely, yeah. Could well get Alvaro Carreton back into the mix, who at the moment is looking down the barrel of, at best, a 12th place finish. But with soft tyre runners all in and around the Spaniard, probably even worse than that. So it's a bit of a disaster, this race, of course, with that front wing damage and the front wing change in the pit stop. Alvaro has had an unfortunate race, but nevertheless, it's going to be very disappointing to be down there in 12th. Jarno Opmeer, by the way, I just want to talk about this ERS again. He is the only driver in the top 10 with above 50% ERS, and he's at 90% ERS. Everyone else is either at about 40, 45%, or they're about 10%. And Jarno just has so much more. So he has so much more speed left to deploy for the remainder of this race.
So about that thing that I was mentioning, you know, is Jarno struggling to keep up with Fabrizio? I guess the answer is no, he's not struggling.
No.
He is biding his time. Jarno Opmeer, he's running Duracell batteries while everyone else around him, they're on those cheap knockoff batteries that you buy in the supermarkets.
This is not an advert, by the way, but yeah,
no.
That is what Jarno Opmeer is doing right now, effectively. Yeah, he's got a lot of juice left in those batteries, and the other guys simply do not. Fabrizio has been able to actually conserve a bit more ERS in these last few laps. He's back up to about 50% now, but that's still lacking 40 whole percentage points relative to Jarno Opmeer, so you still feel that Opmeer has this one in his hands if he needs it. This race should still be a Jarno Opmeer win, judging by the situation right now. Simon Weigang has used a lot of ERS to try and close up to Daniele Haddad and to get in range of those front 3 cars. He's almost within touching distance, 1.5 seconds behind, but he's down at 17% ERS right now, whereas Haddad is at about 50. So Simon is using a lot, and I think he's about to run out of puff.
100% ERS for Jarno Opmeer. Surely, through Raidillon, he presses the overtake button. Let's see. Through Raidillon. No overtake button for Jarno Opmeer. He's saving up the energy. Is this a case of Jarno Opmeer waits for the first spot of rain, and as soon as he sees a spot of rain, he then says, okay, now I overtake?
Possibly. I think it might just be that he knows how powerful the slipstream is around here, and he wants to make sure that going into the final lap, or going into the penultimate lap, he's in second, so that he can overtake, make sure he's going to be there at the very end of the race. And I think he's just biding his time. Doesn't want to do the math, doesn't want to overtake and keep swapping back and forth with Fabrizio. Wants to maintain the agency, the control. At the moment, the guy in second controls this race, because the guy in second can decide when to try and pass the guy in first, and usually they are going to be successful. So to be in second, weirdly, is to be in control of the fate of this race.
I just have one slight issue with Jarno Opmeer's strategy, which is I think Jarno is not in as good of a position as he was 3 laps ago, because 3 laps ago he had about 60% ERS to Fabrizio's sub 10. Now Fabrizio has about 50 and Jarno has 90. I think this is much better for Fabrizio because, yes, some people might be thinking, oh, if Jarno's got 100%, he can come out of Le Source, use up all of that ERS from Le Source all the way to the end of the Camel Straight, and it's an easy move. Theoretically, yes, but actually no, because you're only allowed to use, I believe it's a 50-60% ERS over the course of a lap. So that 100% that Jarno Opmeer has, he's only going to be able to use up 60% of it on the last lap, while Fabrizio has 60% ERS. He can use all of that. So in the sense of a last lap attack, they're on even ERS footing.
Yeah, so that probably means he's going to attack on the third to last lap. He's thinking about it right now on Fabrizio, actually. Showing his nose, starting to get a little bit of intent there. I reckon at the beginning of lap 20 is when we're going to see Jarno making that first stab, force Fabrizio to deplete his own battery supplies, and then a couple of laps later on that final lap, go for another go. Hopefully Fabrizio will not have enough left in the tank, and Jarno should be able to make an easy move. As long as he puts Fabrizio under enough pressure in these next 3 laps before that final lap, then he will still maintain enough of an ERS advantage on the final lap. And this is something that Jarno Opmeer knows inside and out. He knows the strategy with the ERS, what to do at all times. I've seen him, operate it to perfection in the past. You can tell in this race that he's so much more in control of the ERS situation. He's been up there at 90% for lap after lap, and the rest of them are struggling to even get above 50%. So Jarno really is in control right now.
There's only one issue with that strategy, I feel, Jacob, which is the fact that does Fabrizio Donoso care if Jarno overtakes him? You said the person who's in second controls a race. Fabrizio will say, sure, Jarno, overtake me. I'll sit behind you. I'll save up my ERS. I won't overtake you, and I'll wait for the last lap to get back through. And I think for Jarno, it's either sit behind Fabrizio and let Fabrizio gain that ERS, or attempt to overtake Fabrizio and pull out a mega lap to pull outside of a second, which I don't think that's really possible. So I think he's going to have to let Fabrizio gain that ERS, and he's going to have to give it everything on the last lap.
Well, he might be giving it some now, actually. He's not in overtake mode, but he's reeling Fabrizio in. And I don't think the Chilean driver is going to be able to defend this one. If Jarno Opmeer goes for the move, he's going to throw a defensive shape up the inside. He does not want to let Jarno Opmeer pass. He doesn't have to in the end, as Opmeer didn't go late enough.
Further behind is 3 abreast going
around.
down into Lecom. Shinaka Clay down the inside. Will squeeze Felipe. Felipe goes sideways. Contact between Felipe and Domenico Lavecce. Somehow Felipe keeps the car pointed in the right direction, but Felipe on the soft tires trying desperately to get past Domenico Lavecce and Shinaka Clay, but gets held down at the first hurdle.
Yeah, he's managed to stay ahead of Andy and Patrick Krucic, the other guys on the soft tyres, so that's critical for Felipe. Domenico Lavecce almost went straight into the back of Shinaka Clay as well, because he had a big moment on the exit of the last part of Lecom. Felipe still looking interested, though, wants to get back past Domenico Lavecce as quickly as possible. Not going to be deterred by that incident with Shinaka Clay. He wants to go again.
Now, Alvaro Caratonis retired from the session. He picked up another 3-second time penalty, and I wonder if that just made him pull it into the pits and retire. Jarno Opmeer 2 tenths behind Fabrizio Donoso, but we're keeping an eye on this battle because Andy is right on the tail of Felipe. Don't forget, in this entire battle, Domenico Lovecchio runs wide. Lovecchio's run wide, he's just let them through. He doesn't want to have any part in this battle. Felipe and Andy around the outside into the final chicane. And Lovecchio will dive on into the pits, which will free Patrick Krutich. And in this battle, don't forget, Pablo Hoglar is the only member who doesn't have a time penalty. Shanaka Clay runs wide, and that means Andy's going to pass, and Felipe can't quite follow through.
Here comes Jarno Opmeer, though, on Fabrizio Donoso. As thrilling as that battle is, this one might get even more tasty. As around the outside, Jarno Opmeer is looking into Lake Con. Fabrizio Donoso in the yellow Renault cannot manage to stay alongside, and as a result, the Dutchman has taken the lead of this race. Guess what? With 3 laps to go. If Fabrizio passes him next lap, which Jarno, I'm sure, will invite him to do, then on that final lap, Jarno Opmeer will be the one with the agency. Fabrizio does not want to pass Jarno Opmeer next lap. Will he be forced to? We'll have to wait and see.
And Shanaka Clay has actually found himself back in front. So Shanaka Clay let Andy through, and then he took Andy on the Kemmel Straight, and the same happened as Simon Weigand's made a mistake. Simon Weigand's lost a rear end through Pouhon. So this is going to give positions over to Shanaka Clay, Felipe, and Andy. There they come through. And dearie me, Simon Weigand retires from the race.
Yeah, he was pushing so hard. He was up there in 4th, desperately trying to get close enough to Daniele Haddad in 3rd to battle for the podium. Couldn't quite get there. And in the process of pushing as hard as he was, the German has lost it through Pouhon and goes out of the race. So sad end to the race for Simon Weigand, but definitely gave a good account of himself in general in this one. Jarno Opmeer still up there in 1st. Fabrizio Donoso pretty close behind, but not as close.
Round the outside of Shanaka Clay into the final corner, and Andy is going to follow Felipe through. So great stuff from the pair of them. Shanaka Clay desperately trying to defend, but he's no longer second in the battle. He's no longer has the advantage when it comes onto the Kemmel Straight. Andy will shortly pass Felipe, but what can Shanaka Clay pull out in his defense?
We will see. Shanaka Clay is going to be close behind them. Will have the slipstream, has something left in the ERS tank, but not a whole lot, but more than Andy has up ahead. He's down to about 3% right now. Shanaka Clay is going to try and look for a move at the end of the Kemmel Straight, but with the DRS that Andy has, it's very difficult to pull alongside, and Shanaka couldn't quite get there in time. So Felipe and Andy will hold on to 7th and 8th for the time being, starting to make progress through the medium runners. But it's too little and too late for anything more than 7th and 8th place in these races, especially with those 3-second time penalties next to their names. Jarno Opmeer did use a bit of ERS at the beginning of this lap to try and pull a gap to Fabrizio Donoso, but has not been able to do so. However, he did force Fabrizio to use his own ERS in response to stay with the Mercedes driver. As a result, Fabrizio will not have enough to effectively mount a charge on this final lap. Jarno Opmeer should just be able to pump the ERS mode on the exit of La Source and coast home to a win.
Fabrizio Donoso down to 2% ERS. He has used everything on the back straight. Jarno Opmeer has about 60% ERS remaining. What can Fabrizio Donoso do? Jarno runs it deep into the final chicane, and this is what Fabrizio needs. He needs to be able to find the best of runs through La Source. Can he find it? Will Jarno make a mistake? Seemingly not. And actually, Fabrizio loses the back end temporarily, and look at Jarno go. ERS has been enabled. He is giving it everything through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. The DRS is still enabled. There is absolutely nothing Fabrizio Donoso can do. He picks up a 3-second time penalty as well, and that will throw his P2 down the drain, potentially his P3 as well. Dario Yamullo coming at Josh Idowu round the outside, and Dario Yamullo pulls off the move and moves back up to P4.
And nicely done by Dario. He lost out to Josh Idowu a couple of laps ago, but now Dario back up into 4th at the critical moment. It's the car behind who's in control, but not when you don't have any ERS left in the tank, as Fabrizio Donoso has found out to his cost. Jarno Opmeer out there in the lead. Fabrizio can't quite live with him, picks up that 3-second time penalty on the last lap just to show how hard it is to try and deal with the Dutchman. Daniele Haddad fell a little bit behind in these last couple of laps, but is comfortable to Dario Yamullo down in 4th, so it's going to be a comfortable P2 in the end for Daniele Haddad when he inherits the 2nd position away from Fabrizio Donoso with that 3-second time penalty.
It's been a fantastic race. It's been an exhilarating race here at Belgium at Spa-Francorchamps. But once again, Jarno Opmeer steps up to the plate. Jarno Opmeer will come through the final chicane, and it will be a hat-trick of wins, a 3 from 3 for the Dutchman. Jarno Opmeer takes the win. Fabrizio Donoso will take P3 after jumping behind Danny Haddad after time penalties. Dario Molo in a P4 ahead of Joshi Doe and Ben Sabukoni. Felipe will come home in P7 ahead of Andy as in the background. Oh, what's happened? Patrick Huttage has been spun around. Contact potentially with the Tom 97 or Pablo Hoglar. Andy in P8, Pablo Hoglar P9, and Shanaka Clay will take the final points of the race.
Yeah, Shanaka Clay just about holding on to 10th position on those aged medium tyres. 3 soft runners managed to make it into the points at the end of this race. Felipe, Andy, and Pablo Hoglar. Patrick Huttage going to be gutted with that finish to what has not been a great race for the Polish driver. But his teammate Jarno Opmeer couldn't probably be happier about it, to be honest. He has had a great race. He put in a very hot lap on that final lap as well. Driver of the day given to Pablo Hoglar. I'm not sure I'd agree with that. I think I might give it to Dario Yamulo myself, actually. The other AlphaTauri did a great job. Started down in 9th, finished up there in 4th. There is going to be Jarno Opmeer taking the trophy.
Another win for Jarno Opmeer, his 4th of the season. And, well, to go back to what we were discussing at the start of the race, yes, Jarno Opmeer will extend his championship lead over Patrick Huttage and everyone else in the race, and it will now be, well, it's going to be well over 20 points. In fact, it might be about 30 points, and Jarno Opmeer, despite missing the first 3 races of the season, might find himself winning the championship, you know, maybe 2 races before the season even comes to a close.
It would be very, very impressive indeed, but we'll have to see. There's plenty of season left to go.
Still got France, UK, Italy, and Bahrain after this race. But on that note, we're going to be heading into a short break. And when we return, we'll be bringing you our post-race reactions and driver interviews. Stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we jump into our post-race show. And stepping on in as quickly as he set a qualifying lap is Fabrizio Donoso. Fabrizio, I'm going to start off first with qualifying because your first quali lap looked really quick. But what on earth happened going into the final chicane? Because it looked like mayhem.
Yeah, it was chaotic. So I kind of went off sequence because my first lap wasn't good, so I decided to go off sequence and have the free track for myself. Obviously, bad timing at the end. A bit unlucky to have Simon and Alessio preparing for the lap. It wasn't intentional, although they could have stick to the right, in my opinion, if they were more aware of the car behind. But yeah, that was just an unlucky situation, and yeah, that only left me with 1 flying lap, which fortunately was enough for P2.
And speaking of that flying lap, because it's always something that comes to my head whenever I see a driver at the final stages of qualifying and having one last shot to make it, is it always, I'm going to give it 110%, or do you ever have a thought thinking, I'll take it a little bit easier just in case?
thing is, I didn't have time for 2 laps. So I told myself, well, when I see the sector 2 time split, if I see it's a bad lap, I'm just gonna go back in the pits again and do my last flying lap for the last 3 minutes. I think it was more of a decent lap. When I crossed the 2 split, I decided to finish the lap. Which I think it was the right thing to do. Yeah, Paul was there today for many. I think wasn't particularly the best times we set so far. But yeah, I did went with that mentality of giving it an extra push on that flying lap I did.
Well, I guess enough about qualifying. Going to the race.
Yes.
I mean, just talk us through the final 4 or 5 laps, because you went from having about 10% ERS to up to about 50% ERS, and then on the last lap back down to 2%. What were the kind of thoughts going through your head on different ways you could defend from Jarno?
Well, the strat was staying ahead as much as I could. I knew that even if Jarno was close to me, it would have been enough to stay ahead with the ERS I had. Sorry. It kind of went at the right moment because that lap he went for the move, I didn't actually use ERS, so it was really good timing for him to go for the move. But yeah, I mean, it was just sitting behind, even though if he was 8, between 6, 9, 10s behind. I think I had good pace. Yeah, he just played it better through the whole race, saving ERS and using it at the right time. Couldn't do much more than that. As you saw, he had plenty of ERS till when he overtook me, and yeah, he used it to not be in danger at the end.
Well, Fabrizio, congrats on, well, what was a fantastic battle between yourself and Jarno, at least from our perspective, and great to see you back on form in the championship.
Thank you.
Now, I believe Jacob has our race winner at the ready.
Yeah, you know what, mate? Congratulations on yet another race win. First of all, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Not too bad. I won, so then it's always good.
Indeed. So let's rewind back a bit and go to qualifying then. So if I remember rightly, after you set your first lap in qualifying, I think you were on provisional pole for the whole remainder of qualifying, unless I'm mistaken. Is that right?
No, the first one was not fast enough for pole. I think it was a low 0.2 or something like that. So I think that would have been P2. So yeah.
But nevertheless, a very, very dominant display really in qualifying in the end. Got a few really good laps in. Is this a track that you have a special confidence in your 1-lap pace, or is that just sort of what we can expect from you week in, week out?
I wouldn't say really confident, as I felt like my short qualifying lap wasn't great in the session itself. I felt like I was doing better in practice, so I wasn't very happy with that. Even though the pace was obviously very, very good, I felt like I left quite a bit on the table in the actual session. So yeah, definitely more in there. But yeah, wasn't today.
Mm-hmm. And then it was good enough though to get you on pole. But in the race, you lost first position a few laps in to Fabrizio Donoso. Was that all just kind of according to plan for you, or would you have liked to be able to maintain first?
Yeah, I didn't really mind. Fabrizio was pushing very, very hard, so I realized early on as well that it might have been. It felt like better to follow him around for a bit and see how his pace was. But yeah, I noticed he was pushing very hard, so then he pitted, I think, slightly earlier than I planned to do. So yeah. Oh, sorry.
And then when you pitted for that to try and extend the gap on you with the undercut, was that something you were worried about all the time, or did you feel that you were always going to be able to just really push on that in lap and then have enough to get back into DRS range when it came to the out lap of the next one?
Yeah, on my in-lap, I had very well a lot of ERS. Basically, when Fabrizio went into the pits, I had like 95%, so I could push quite hard on the in-lap, and then reduce the undercut slightly, as it's a very long lap, so it's a very big undercut as well. But at the same time, the tire wear will be extremely, or not extremely high, but it will be a lot higher during the wall race. So yeah, Fabrizio did came out 2 seconds ahead of me, but I came out in quite some clear air. I think I was 1 second behind another medium runner. Was still at the pit, so I could use his DRS and then reduce it to 1.5, and then from there on, I'm quite sure I had more ERS to play with to close the gap.
Yeah, and that ERS is something that keeps coming up and up and up. And in that race as well, it was very evident because you spent the vast majority of that second stint up there at sort of 80 to 90% ERS mode, ERS percentage left rather. The drivers around you were either at about 10 for some of them, or they were more like about 40 to 50. So there was really a huge difference in terms of your ERS relative to everyone else in the top 10. So is this something that you have worked on, especially is sort of managing your ERS throughout a race situation, or is it just something that you feel comes naturally to you?
I think it came 2 ways. I mean, I was managing it quite well, of course, but I think my raw pace was slightly faster than the others, so then it's automatically easier to regenerate your ERS without losing too much time to others around you. So I think both those things helped me during the race, especially in the end, of course.
Yeah, indeed. And in the end, you were then able to get back past Fabrizio and to take the win. So congratulations on your win once again, and thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our P3 finisher on track, but P2 after time penalties. Danny Haddad, I'll go straight back. Your last few races haven't been the best at P11 China, P8 Brazil, outside the top 10 Bahrain. So it's fantastic to see you back in the top 10 and back on the podium as well. A sense of relief for you potentially?
Hello everybody. No, I mean, it's those are races. Sometimes I've done a mistake, like in Bahrain, I was P6 going for a move to P5. I just broke a bit too late and I destroyed my race. In Brazil, I believe was something related to full wet condition. We did a decision that probably wasn't the optimal. So I mean, it's part of it, part of the race. Is a competitive championship. Sometimes you're a bit more in front, sometimes you're a bit more behind. But we are speaking about a 10 gap from being like P2 or P1 or P7, P8. So it's, I don't think a relief. But I did a very good job today. I'm happy about it.
And, I mean, in the race, you were kind of in the battle, I think it was, with Josh Hidowu for quite a while. And you had Jarno and Fabrizio just kind of within that 1 second. Were you struggling to keep up? Did you ever think that maybe I could find myself in a position where you could maybe snatch away P2 or P1 from them on circuit?
Exactly, that's what I was trying to do, just trying to stay into the second. I was pushing a bit of ERS, especially to overtake guys after the pit with Jarno, so to not lose the train of Jarno with one lap tire less than me, and so obviously I was trying to recover without compromising the pace, so trying to stay into the DRS and catching the opportunity. In this track, you cannot do much more if you're not in second position. So I was simply trying to enjoy the battle in front, hoping that maybe something would have happened between them and I would have catch the opportunity. If not, honestly, it would have been really complicated.
With that P2, you now find yourself second in the championship on 81 points, 5 ahead of Patrick Krutic and 10 ahead of Alvaro Caraton. What's the goal here for you? Is it just hold on to P2, or are you just taking it more race by race and then see what happens in the championship?
Well, I'm first in the humans now. It's not too bad. So I believe, honestly, Jarno in 2020 game has been incredible from the Pro Series and not really just on the overall pace, because everybody can do more or less a lap time that Jarno, for example, does, but but I believe he's incredible in the consistency he does it. So every race is there, and honestly, fighting with Jarno for the championship, I believe is a bit complicated. But I have never seen the championship leaders, so I know now that I'm second, and I continue to do the races. I enjoy to do races apart from championship and everything. So I will try to continue and be in second or third position, or maybe even first in the next couple of races.
You know, Danny, it's very modest of you to consider yourself as being one of us mere humans, but fair enough. If we'll allow you to claim the spot as a top human in the championships. Daniela Haddad, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck in the final 4 races.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's the reality. Jarno is really, really good. So thank you so much for everything, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Right, Jacob, I believe you are ready with our next interviewee.
Yeah, well, we got an option of 2 here right now. We got both Patrick Crouchage and Tom97. So, should we talk to Patrick first? He joined the channel first, so he's been waiting a little bit longer. And, Patrick, are you there?
Yeah, I am there. Yeah, hello.
Hello, hi.
Good evening.
First of all, yeah, good evening to you too. First of all, I'm actually going to ask you first about the end of the race. Because we noticed you were actually facing the wrong way out of the final corner. We didn't actually get to see quite what happened there. So take us through what happened at that final moment of the race.
Well, very unlucky. Just got the puncture on the Blanchimont. So 2 corners to go, like just the chicane to go, and I got a puncture. So yeah, I was trying to hold on to my P10, I mean, on the track as much as I could. So I just protected the inside, had the 2 very fast guys behind me. But yeah, on the exit of the chicane, there was no way I can really go on throttle very quick with a puncture on the rear tires. On the rear left, I think. Yeah, on the rear left, or maybe right, I don't remember exactly. But yeah, just didn't have traction to make the, just hold on to P10. So that was very, very unlucky because, again, in this race, I got 2 unfair warnings by, I was just pushed off the track 2 times and just got 2 warnings. So I was just sitting there in the P10, because I was pretty sure my warnings and penalty will be removed. So I was just sitting there comfortably, just waiting until the end of the race to grab P7 after, just making sure that just going to the stewards and saying that it was quite unfair, but now there's no need to do that because I got a puncture anyway. So that was just very, very unlucky and unexpected. Yeah,
I honestly hadn't really realized punctures were even on the cards. I mean, those softs were what, 9-10 laps old at that point of the race. What sort of percentages were you at?
I think I was on 75 when I got the puncture, so that was just at the beginning of the puncture zone. So very unlucky with that. Yeah.
Unfortunate for sure. And now I will ask you about the beginning again. So we'll go back to qualifying very briefly here. Throughout the first stages of qualifying, the first 2 or 3 hot laps that everyone was putting in, you were sort of ending up there in about 7th or something like that. It seemed like it was going to be a pretty good qualifying session from you. And then in that final run, did you fail to improve, or did you just not improve enough? Because you ended up down in 13th.
Yeah, I just failed to improve. I just made a mistake on the lap. So yeah, the whole quali I was just there. P5, P7 after 2 runs, but on the final run I just messed up completely. Yeah, I was just quite a bit of my best performance in quali still, because I used to struggle a lot in quali in terms of putting lap together. It's mainly down to the way I cope with the pressure, or maybe I don't cope with the pressure very well in the quali, and I can really say that honestly with you guys. And this is something I have to work on, because that always makes my quali really bad, because I know in the race I don't have any pressure at all, and always it's better in the races basically. So quali was kind of okay till the last run, so it wasn't that good.
Well, it's good for you to be able to identify your own problem points and to be able to hopefully work on them from there. And then let's talk about the race itself then as well, because I think, the race was going a bit better than particularly the end of quali went. until that puncture, of course. But you were having a lot of battles with a lot of people on that sort of
Yeah.
contra strategy. Were you expecting that the contra strategy would be able to get you a bit higher up than it did get you towards the end of that race? Or
Yeah, I think so, because after the first corner, I was P9 even. Then I lost P9 after the Oruge. So I was behind Ben Chabo, who finished, I think, P6 or P5 maybe. I don't know, but he was, I think, in front after the second on the second stint. So yeah, if I just hold on to this P9 and didn't lose the positions after a few laps, because I was battling with Andy, with Chazo Felipe, who was lagging so much because I think he's playing from Brazil. And yeah, I just lost too much time on those battles, lost too much ERS. I just didn't have ERS left, and always I was off DRS. I just couldn't get the DRS of Andy. So yeah, the first stint was just very compromised, and the second stint was a bit better with it. So yeah, I was hoping for, I was going for P7, but yeah, shit happens, as we say.
Indeed it does. And one very quick final question here.
Yeah.
And it's about your surname. We have been saying Krutage. How close to right is that?
In Polish, we say Kruti.
Kruti, okay.
Kruti, yeah. So we don't say J as a Krutic.
Right.
We say just Yot, Yi, just like that. So I mean, I don't mind if you say Krutic. It's all right. It sounds more like, how to say, like worthwhile, like just
yeah.
I don't know, like
well,
it sounds better.
I'll try and
like,
say at least Kruti from now on and see. I mean, hopefully
okay,
it's a bit closer.
you can try. You can try with that.
Thank you very much, and
but
thank
it's
you.
good. I'm very happy. All right, so that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's everything.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so have a good evening, guys.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thanks. I'll be honest, Jacob. I think Fruity is much easier to say than
It is. It's so much easier. We're making it so much harder for ourselves than we needed to.
So, Tom, are we getting your surname right? Is it 97?
I mean, you could go with that. That's probably easier, right?
Tom, thanks for joining us. P11, I think, come the end of the race. So close, but yet so far to the points.
Yeah. To be fair, keeping it brief, it was painful. Very painful. The puncture issue with Patrick spinning in front of me, he basically just roadblocked me, so I had no penalties, and I was hoping to benefit from all those penalties in front, and obviously I got blocked. So it's just terrible luck. The fact he got a left rear puncture, he then spun into my path, and I just couldn't go anywhere, and he didn't ghost, so all those penalties from the cars ahead, all gone, and I kept my race perfectly clean as well.
Where would it have taken you up to if you weren't blocked coming out the final corner?
Obviously depends. Obviously, Patrick mentioned he would have got his removed, but let's just say for the benefit of this that all the penalty stairs they were, it should have been P8. And I did get a cutback on Pablo at the final chicane because he was being blocked by Patrick as well. So had I not been taken out in the process, it probably could have been P7.
Well, very close come the end of the race. What was, I mean, kind of the majority of the race like? Because we kind of saw a bit at the front with Jana. We saw a little bit with Alessio making his way up the order. But what was it like from your POV?
Not really much going on, to be fair. I've done 3 races here in the last week now. One for a different league last week. I did esports challenges around here as well and here. And I've got the exact same problem. Because I'm not the fastest driver, I get stuck in traffic and overheat the engine. Therefore, DRS train. That's just the way it goes. I was at the back of the train just trying to save DRS, see what I could do. Waiting for that kind of pit stop phase when people start to pit and it kind of breaks up the train a bit. And that's your opportunity to kind of make something happen. And I did. I managed to get past Pablo on the end lap. Got a 1 second gap. I boxed, rejoined ahead, and at that point things were looking pretty decent. But then I had no pace on the soft tires. I don't know what happened. I went for the alternate strategy, no pace on the softs. Pablo re-overtook me, which was quite frustrating. And then again stuck in another DRS train really until the very last lap when it all kind of kicked off all the penalties and everyone just battling away. It was a boring race, in fairness. I can't really make it sound more entertaining than what it was, to be honest.
I'm looking at the next 4 races in the season: France, UK, Italy, and Bahrain. And I'll be honest, they all sound very much like DRS at a train track. So, what's the objective for you if we do get to see you racing in the final 4 races of the season?
Well, first and foremost, I think I should be in the final four. I've got nothing else going on Sunday night, so hopefully I'll try and turn up. I don't know. It's a similar issue. I mentioned this, I think, the other day when I was doing challenges. I've hit a bit of a wall at the moment in terms of my pace. Ultimately, I'm not an esports guy. So for me to kind of take that next step is going to take a lot of dedication. I kind of feel like I've hit a certain limit at my pace, whether regardless of the league I race in, whatever I do. So if I want to go forward, I just got to try and find some more time, because ultimately, I do content most of the time on YouTube and stuff. So league racing is kind of a fun / second priority. So I just need to try and find time, basically, to try and make something happen, and hope that I can find a bit of pace, because yeah, those tracks aren't going to be particularly great. I do feel like around Spa, though, engine overheating has for some reason hurt me more than other tracks. I've been in DRS trains before, but I've never had it this bad. So I think the run up Eau Rouge and Raidillon and then the Camel Straight it's just such a long straight. It just really, really hurts. But I'll see. I feel confident. We'll just give it a good crack and see what happens.
Well, Tom, we look forward to seeing you in the final 4 races of the season and getting to see you in those top 10 and picking up some points.
Yeah, we'll try our best.
All right, pleasure to have you with us, Tom. So, Jacob, I guess that pretty much rounds everything up. I'm not gonna lie, it was very entertaining actually to hear Daniela Haddad saying that he was the first of all the humans, because to be honest, they're all aliens. That's why I've been calling Yana the Predator, right? He's the only one who can be the alien. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think if you ask any driver, they will say they are the fastest of the humans. They will put everyone above them at alien status, and they will put everyone below them at human status, and they will say, I am the last bastion for humanity. I am the fastest remaining human.
Jacob, are you the fastest human about?
No, I'm not the fastest anything about, trust me.
Jacob, I'm sure you're the fastest Jacob about. And
I really doubt that's even true, to be honest. Jacob's a pretty common name. I reckon we can find some faster Jacobs.
Anyone in the chat, if you know a Jacob who is remotely fast, say so. See, I've seen nothing. I've seen nothing. You are now officially the fastest Jacob around.
All right. Well, if you're that desperate to give me my participation trophy, I'll take it. Thank you very much.
Well, that is all that we do have time for tonight. This was round 8 of ORL Season 14 here from Belgium. We're going to be taking... I was going to say we're going to be taking a week break. We're going to be back next Sunday for the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard. Make sure to tune in then. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I've been used to Milky Serial Bin Sahel, joined by the wonderful Jacob Alada Hancock. You can catch both of us on Twitter at MilkySerial73 and at JHancocksCast. And of course, make sure to follow ORL at team_ORL to stay up to date with all the online racing league updates. But until next week, stay fast, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.